And then there were two. What's up, everybody? Tailgate Nate is back. We're here to talk college football. We are going to be recapping the college football playoff semifinals, giving you my prediction for the national championship game. And hey, there's a big storyline that broke down in the Big Ten. So we'll talk about all that and more here on the Tailgate Nate College Football Channel. What's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning into the show wherever you may be watching. My name is Nate Bope, otherwise known as Tailgate Nate. I'm a sports media graduate with a massive passion for everything that goes on in the world of sports, and that especially includes the world of college football. So if you want to be up to date on everything that I do, I always post day of when I stream. So what I always do is I post that morning if I'm going to stream that night, and looking to get a little bit more rugged schedule out. Again, learning process along with me. Appreciate all of you, though, still tuning in. Please go ahead, hit the subscribe button if you want to follow everything I do. Even if you missed the live show, you can watch the clips back afterward, and follow me on social media at TailgateNate29, Twitter, Instagram, or how I'm going to keep you updated on everything going on this channel and everything else I do in the professional world of sports media. Once again, thank you so much for tuning in. Rundown for today. Again, we're going to be talking about the college football playoff semifinals because we haven't had a chance to break those down yet. I haven't had a chance to break those down yet, at least. I know, long overdue, but we'll go through stuff really quickly, tell you my thoughts on all the games, and then we'll be previewing your national championship game, Miami, Indiana. It's going to be a fantastic game. I won't, let into any spoilers on the predictions. But in between those two segments, a little shorty today, we'll be talking about Dante Moore and his decision to come back to Oregon. Once we get past the national championship, which, by the way, I plan to. I'm not going to make any promises here, but I plan to be able to live stream that, my live reaction to it. So sit down, watch the national championship, and have all of you on stream with me. I think that would be pretty fun. I think that would be pretty cool. So hopefully that is the plan. Nothing on my schedule is in the way of that currently. So we're going to be planning to do that, and probably another show here this weekend, either Saturday or Sunday, leaning towards Sunday afternoon before the NFL playoffs really get going. So once again, thank you all so much for tuning in. If you are new to the channel, I suggest you hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, and follow me on all social medias. Otherwise, you can rewatch this stream back and the clips that get posted on the YouTube channel that will start tomorrow morning. But we got to dive into things right now because we are late on talking about the semifinal game. So that is going to be the first topic of conversation. Let's dive in and break down what you need to know about what happened at the college football playoff semifinals. So the first semifinal, Miami and Ole Miss, cinema. I mean, this was absolutely fantastic. And as of recording this video, it's been a bit. So let's try to refresh all our memories of how we got to this moment and how is Miami playing for a national championship. Well, Miami did open the scoring, first drive of the game, 13 plays, went 44 yards, scored that touchdown. And then it really just became a seesaw affair. For the most part, you had Ole Miss score a touchdown, then Miami score on the very next drive. Ole Miss, you'll see a theme. They do it on mostly dynamic plays. They did it there on that touchdown. Ended up being a 73-yard run for Kawan Lacey. Miami, methodical, grind it out. They controlled the pace of this game. They score a touchdown, retake the lead. Ole Miss answers with a field goal. And then you really saw, again, that seesaw back and forth. Miami gets a touchdown, couple missed field goals in there, although 3 straight made field goals from Ole Miss, again with the misses lined in there, give them the lead. Miami scores, Ole Miss scores, and then Carson Beck wins the Hurricanes the game on a 15-play, 75-yard drive that only took Miami 2 minutes and 55 seconds, but with, I believe, 18 seconds left. Carson Beck was able to get into the end zone, and Ole Miss did make a pretty decent effort of it, although there was absolutely no dice for Trinidad Chambliss and company as the final pass sailed over the head of the intended target, which happened to be Deshaun Stribling. Some people wanted pass interference on it. I'm okay with letting them play out in that situation, but that's how we got here. Miami defeats Ole Miss, and the Hurricanes advance to their first national championship game since 2002. Absolutely nothing negative that I think you can take away from either of these programs. As far as what these teams were able to accomplish this year, Miami, we're going to talk obviously more about them throughout the stream. And if you're watching, well, look for the other videos that pop up on the YouTube channel. For Miami, this has just been a phenomenal run. You knock out the national champs from last season. You knock out a pretty good Texas A&M team the round before that, and you beat your second SEC opponent of the playoff run with a win here over an Ole Miss team that just had their hair on fire, and Trinidad Chambliss looked like he could make any play on earth. He was simply sensational, and in this game, I don't know that you saw the Trinidad Chambliss that you saw against Georgia, but you still saw a really good version of him, 277 yards and a touchdown. However, what Miami was able to do was not allow him affect the game with his legs, which, again, going back to Georgia, was a big key for Chambliss and company to be able to do. They worked the ball on the ground, not only with Kawan Lacey, and he got his in this game, averaged nearly 9.5 yards per carry, but that big breakaway touchdown run, you take away that. Ole Miss, or I should say Miami, held him to right around 3 yards per carry, give or take. So besides that big run, I mean, Miami kept this run game in check. They made Trinidad Chambliss win the game with his arm. Now, granted, he made some plays. He did. And I mean, one of the MVPs here of this Ole Miss postseason run has got to be Lucas Carnero. I mean, 4 for 5 on field goals. Yeah, Ole Miss ended up getting a 2-point conversion down there later, but that is 12 of the 27 points that Ole Miss put up there. And if you count the one extra point he made, there's 13. So nearly half. I mean, Lucas Carnero, you have to give him a shout out because he was awesome in this postseason run, in this game. Seemed to make every kick when it mattered. I know he ended up missing the one, and if you make that one, I mean, the scoreboard still reflects a Miami win. However, he makes it. They get the chance to kick the field goal. Hindsight obviously is 2020, but I mean, no disappointments here, at least for me. If I am an Ole Miss Rebel fan, I know there may be some out there. Oh, disappointing they couldn't get this one done. But man, Trinidad Chambliss was amazing. And the only bad thing about Ole Miss is you probably aren't going to have Trinidad Chambliss for another season of college football. It looks like that was it. Tried to get an eligibility extension, ended up getting denied by the NCAA. And I know Ole Miss is going to try to fight and do anything they can to get him back in that quarterback room. But alas, that does not seem the way that it's going to work out. Trinidad Chambliss had himself a very successful college career, has a national championship under his belt at the D2 level, came in and put a stunner on the college football world. So even if Trinidad Chambliss gets another season, I mean, he played absolutely phenomenally this year, and it was a joy to watch, especially throughout this postseason run. Now, for the Ole Miss Rebels, you've got a good roster coming back next season. Yes, you're going to lose guys, right? We know that this is an offense and defense that's got some fairly experienced pieces. Guys will go to the draft, so on and so forth. Obviously, the biggest loss going to end up being that starting quarterback in Chambliss if he does, in fact, end up not coming back to play college football next year. But for the Ole Miss Rebels, doing this thing without Lane Kiffin and proving that, hey, we're still going to be formidable in the SEC. I know everybody's going to expect them to have a big drop-off, and you had the momentum of the Lane Kiffin thing to carry, and now they won't have that. It's a full offseason under Pete Golding. There's still going to be that level of uncertainty, but based off what I've seen, I don't think Pete Golding is going to back down from some of that killer instinct, at least offensively, that we saw Ole Miss have. Now, Charlie Weiss Jr. obviously being gone, it's going to be an entirely new staff change. That's going to hurt them, right? But I do believe this is an Ole Miss team that's going to find their way back. Maybe not at this point next season, but I think they're going to keep themselves in contention, if not close to it, next year. I think Pete Golding is the right guy for the job, and this was a fantastic story through and through. What a job for the Ole Miss Rebels. What a way to rip through this postseason, only to come up just short by a team that's going to play for a national championship in their home building this upcoming Monday. As of sitting down and doing this live, obviously, if you're watching the video, doing this on Wednesday. So, I mean, man, this Miami team just looks fearless. And Carson Beck was making some absolutely phenomenal throws, 268 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. Did have the pick in there, but not really his fault. Deflected ball, got caught by a defender. So not really going to blame that one on him. Mark Fletcher continues to do his thing. 22 carries, 133 yards. And unlike his counterpart, Kawan Lacey, who got 73 of his 100 plus on 1 carry, Mark Fletcher did not have a touch longer than 19 yards, which is outstanding. You saw Keelan Marion get involved. You saw a pretty substantial play to Malachi Toney, right? You started to see more things in the offense get involved. What impressed me the most about Miami was this. Throughout the Texas A&M game, throughout the Ohio State game, they slowed it down. They put the pressure on the opposing offense. And at times, I think they made it pretty messy, especially in the trenches. Not saying they didn't do that here because, well, their defense was able to get some good pressure, but you saw the legs of Trinidad Chambliss not really play into factor in rush yardage, but just being able to extend those plays like he did against Georgia. Just 1 sack and 1 tackle for loss for this Miami defense, but you saw a new side of this defensive unit step up, and that was their secondary, making some really big-time stops, just playing some phenomenal defense overall, and the trenches were still won by Miami. Sure, Ole Miss had their moments, but those trenches were still won. Miami played at a fast tempo, and they were able to keep up with Ole Miss. They ran nearly 90 plays in this game, which is not the formula that Mario Cristobal and this Hurricanes team usually wants to follow. However, they had to follow it here because of the way that Ole Miss plays, the way that they sped them up, the way that, look, man, Miami was going down the field on these methodical drives. 13-play scoring drive, 15 plays. The missed field goal was 9 plays. The tipped interception was well into Ole Miss territory. That was 13 plays, 15 plays to end the game. They were slow. They were methodical. They still were able to put these long drives together, but they ran a lot of plays because Ole Miss was ripping the things off. Up until late, they had a 14-play field goal drive, but 8-play scoring drive, 7 plays, a 2-play touchdown drive that got them on the board. Sure, it's not 1 play, 2 play, 3 play, 4 play. You're mixing 6, 7, 8 in there, but Ole Miss still played fast, and that shows with time of possession. Miami had the ball for 41 minutes in this game. And so you could say that, Miami still was able to slow this thing down and play their tempo, which I also believe is a true statement. But when they had to play fast, they were able to do it. When they were in that 4-minute crunch, it was more like a 3.5-minute drill at the end of that game, they were able to do it. And it still took 15 plays. They, ran a lot of different sets, but they got it done. I think that's what's impressed me most about Miami is, they were in danger of losing this game without giving up 20 minutes of possession to their opponent. Just shows you how good Ole Miss has been, and especially how good Trinidad Chambliss has been. And this Ole Miss defense did step up and make a couple of plays, but Miami was able to persevere. They were resilient, and it's a big factor of why they won this game. Kudos to the Hurricanes. Again, man, just the job that Mario Cristobal's been able to do. They're now going to go play for a national championship, and we'll talk about more of those stories later on, if you're watching it back, in a different video. But all credit to really both of these sides. This was just a phenomenal football game. I loved watching this one, but it will be the Miami Hurricanes trying to do something that no college football team has ever done. I'll try that again. That no college football team has ever done. And they're going to go try to win a championship in their own building on home turf. They defeat Ole Miss 31-27, and the Hurricanes advance to the college football playoff semifinal. National championship. Sorry. They advance to the college football playoff national championship. They just won the semifinal. Can you believe that? Yeah, I mean, just absolutely phenomenal game. I really don't have much more to say with it. And I did save a couple of very specific talking points, and that will be brought back up when we talk about the national championship game. So there's one semifinal done and out of the way. We will talk about the other semifinal in a lot more brief of nature, because that one warranted some good conversation and obviously talking about what it meant for both sides. The one we're about to talk about, it was, to a lot of people, over after that very first play. But before we move on to that, you're watching for the first time, you're tuning in. First of all, thank you so much. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, and better yet, ring the bell so you're notified when streams happen. But if you don't want to be notified out of the blue and you want to know when streams happen well in advance, then follow me on social media, Twitter, Instagram, wherever else you like to peruse through the socials. It's at Tailgate829. Every single social media has the exact same handle. Follow me so you know when streams are going live. And if you happen to miss the streams, that's okay. All the clips will be uploaded on the YouTube channel. Oh, and also, obviously, remember to stay hydrated. You like it? Brown's mug. Dog. Anyway, let's move on to talking about the next semifinal game. And again, this one, yeah. So before I start talking about this one, I would like to apologize for one specific reason, because I'm about to use a term that I hardly ever use, and I don't use language like this often, but this game deserved it, because this was an ass whooping from the very first play. Indiana picks off Dante Moore on the first play, and that was that. Every single game this season, as soon as Indiana has that momentum, there's just no getting it back. A talking point we'll talk about later when we talk about the national championship game. But this was up and down the field. I mean, BTA. This was unbelievable. If you were going to tell me and look me in the eye and say, Nate, how do you expect this game to not go? I would have described the way that it played out here. And I'm not talking about the fact that Fernando Mendoza, the Heisman Trophy winner, threw for 5 touchdowns and only 177 yards. That's not the most surprising thing to me, although a really good stat line. It's not the fact that Indiana was able to run the ball for 4.6 yards per carry while holding the Ducks to a yard less than that. That's not the surprising thing to me. No, the surprising thing to me was the self-inflicted errors, especially turnovers by Oregon. That's for a couple different reasons. One, I just flat out expected them to play better. But two, this is not really an Indiana defense that has forced a lot of turnovers this season. Now, that comes in part with Oregon made a lot of mistakes in this game. In fact, if you go back and watch film, it was a longer developing route. Who knows if it would have been open if Dante Moore didn't throw the ball. But on the opposite side of the field, on the first play of the game, he had an open guy, and it could have been 6 points right there for Oregon, not Indiana. Instead, it is an absolutely beautiful job to jump that route. And I have to give credit where credit is due to D'Angelo Pond, who also has a pond named after him in Indiana, by the way. So kudos, D'Angelo Pons, for jumping on that ball, jumping that route, and taking that thing for 6. Flat out, this was an unbelievable performance from the Indiana Hoosiers. And is it weird to say that the Heisman Trophy winner got better once he grabbed a hold of the thing? Because only 3 incompletions, 5 touchdowns, and again, only 177 yards. This was a team on the ground in Indiana that outrushed what Fernando Mendoza was able to produce. And that is astonishing, especially considering what Oregon was going to try to rely on in this game. It was slowing down that run game. It was trying to control what happened in the trenches, and that just did not happen at all. Indiana was all over Oregon from every single facet. I haven't even talked about what they did defensively yet, besides holding Oregon to only 3.6 yards per carry, which, hey, let's give the Ducks a little bit of credit, is what they had to do to try to win this game. It's just that nothing else went right. Their defense couldn't stop anything. Dante Moore was making too many mistakes, and Indiana's defensive front was living in Oregon backfield. 3 sacks, 10 tackles for loss. Spectacular. This was one of the best played games from one team's side that I have seen in a long time, because Indiana played this game flawlessly, and in true typical Kurt Cignetti fashion, they did not let up. As soon as they had Oregon and the Duck was caught by the throat, bam, they stepped on that gas pedal even harder, and they did not stop. It's what makes Indiana so dangerous, right? Once they control that momentum, and once they are able to settle into the flow of the game, if they're starting out slow, good luck. I mean, just quite simply, good luck. This was unbelievable. You can see that I am just in shock and awe of the way that Indiana was just able to dominate this game up and down the field. Guys, Indiana had a 42-7 lead in the college football playoff semifinals. Now, I know we've seen blowout games before, and I don't have to remind people what happened in the 2022 national championship game. However, when you consider the fact that this is an Oregon team coming in here that, look, did not play their best ball against Texas Tech. Quite frankly, they just did not capitalize on enough opportunities. But what was weird is Oregon was 8 for 13 on third down. Now, granted, a lot of those third down conversions did come a little bit later, still under 100 rushing yards. But Indiana just played flawlessly. Their defense lived everywhere. By the way, Indiana was outgained this game, y'all. Indiana was outgained, granted, only by 16 yards, but they were still outgained during this contest. The 3 turnovers all led to points. Indiana did not settle for anything, and they were surgical all game long, especially on third down. 11 of 14. I'm surprised that it's that. I'm surprised it's not 100%, because look, and it really should be no surprise, because Indiana is the best third down team in the country. But I don't remember them not getting a conversion on third down. I mean, they were awesome. They were amazing. And penalties did not affect this game at all. 5 for 5. And there were so many other things that Oregon can go back and look on and say, oh, we got to clean that up here moving forward. Now, we're going to talk a lot more about Indiana, because they just keep creating the best moment in Indiana history, and something tells me that they're not done. However, for Oregon, and talking about Coach Dan Lanning, I've seen a couple of people out there now start to throw out the James Franklin narrative towards Dan Lanning. Okay. To me, and to a lot of other people, James Franklin was always the most accurately rated coach in the country, because you could count on him to win the games that you knew he was going to win. And he was probably going to lose the games to where teams had the matchup comparison. The teams were matched up pretty fairly, or they had the matchup advantage. A lot of times, when Oregon played him this year, when Ohio State had played Penn State in the past, at times when Penn State would go against Michigan. What happened to get James Franklin fired was he lost the games that people felt like he should win. That Oregon loss did derail Penn State's season, but it was because he lost to UCLA. It was because he lost to Northwestern. That is what let him off the hook and is what let him go. He lost the games that you always depended on him to win. Dan Lanning, for the most part, does the exact same thing, right? He is going to win the games that you know he's going to win. And to be quite honest with you, he's already won the big games. Now, nobody is going to remember the 2 playoff semifinals that Dan Lanning won this year. And even if they remember one of them, they're not going to remember James Madison. They might remember Texas Tech, but a lot of the college football public will chalk that up to, oh, it's a Big 12 team. Well, they got no business being in here anyway. They really weren't that good. Texas Tech was a good football team, but they did not play mistake-free football. Oregon didn't play mistake-free football either, but they walked away with that win. Dan Lanning and his club found well more than enough to win that football game. So, I'm not going to sit here and say that the comparison is totally out of reach, because this is the second straight year where Dan Lanning has fell to a Big Ten club in the college football playoff. However, I just don't understand the slander on Dan Lanning. When you look at James Franklin, he's still, in my opinion, one of the top 10, at very least, top 15 coaches in the entire country. Dan Lanning is easily top 10, heck, if not top 5. So Oregon is going to be absolutely fine moving forward. You feel for Dante Moore, but maybe not so much anymore. Talk about why later this stream. And again, if you're watching back on video, you'll have to click on the Dante Moore video when it gets uploaded. But when you're looking at Oregon, there's going to be a good bulk of that team that does come back next season. And it's a Ducks team that just continues to push the boundaries of what they've been able to do and continue to climb towards that national championship that has eluded them, right? The first ever college football playoff, they played Ohio State in the national title, fell well short. Now you've made a quarterfinal round, lost to the Buckeyes, made a semifinal round, lost to the Indiana Hoosiers. Ohio State obviously went on to win the national championship, and Indiana very well could go do the same thing on Monday night. This is an Oregon team that I think can get there. Will get there. I'm not a crystal ball. Okay, I can't see the future. However, if I did, I would be willing to say that Dan Lanning and Oregon walk away with the national title in the next 5 to 10 seasons. I believe that he's the right man for the job. I believe he's one of the best head coaches in the entire country. And I believe that he's capable of getting Oregon a national championship. This season, you ran into this logo. And it's weird that it's this logo. But if you throw the logos and branding aside, you ran into this team. You ran into this juggernaut, this absolute wagon of a program this season and of a team. Fernando Mendoza has played fantastic. Again, as soon as Indiana grabbed the momentum here, there was no stopping it. And that's been the way pretty much all season. You could say outside of the Big Ten championship game where it felt like momentum was swinging a little bit, but Indiana found a way to pull that out. Same thing with that Penn State game. But it is true that once Indiana grabs a hold of that thing, they are not letting go at all. Boy, what a team, what a season. And Indiana, you can't say enough good things about just the way that Sig has put this team together and the way that this team has performed this season. They've been the best team in college football, period. End of story. I think, a lot of people realize that after they beat Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game. And if not then it had to have happened when they beat Alabama. And I don't know how you have any doubt in your mind right now. Indiana was just, they've been flawless. And I used the word surgical earlier because that's what they've been all season long. Just steady, rock steady, and you can count on them, right? Unless something catastrophic happens, nothing goes bad in surgery, okay? Unless you end up finding something that you weren't expecting. I don't think that there's anything to find. I think this has been routine for Indiana this season. And Fernando Mendoza has been fantastic. And this rushing attack has stepped up when it's needed to. And this defensive front is bullying everybody. And the secondary is now starting to make a ton of plays. This is an Indiana team that is well deserving of this national championship appearance, and Coach Sig is well deserving of everything that he gets in terms of incentives, awards. He even got, he got a contract extension. He's about to get another much bigger one at the end of this run. Flawless, phenomenal. Love everything about this Indiana team and about this story. And the Hoosiers are going to be moving on to the College Football Playoff National Championship, where they will try to win the school's first national title. And just like that, the semifinals are complete. And they are done. And we have talked about them on the live stream. So Scotty, thanks for joining the stream. As always, my man. Oregon's got the potential to do it. Well, it's going to be hard for anybody to go win a national championship, right, Scotty? Only one team can stand out of 136 in the country. They brought Indiana from bottom dweller to a national title. Again, we'll talk about it here in just a little bit. But we got to talk about some news that broke today first. But I mean, man, just SIG in Indiana, surgical is the perfect way to describe them. They have been awesome. They have been amazing. And we will preview your national championship game between Miami and Indiana after this next segment. But I also do want to say, for those of you in the stream that may be new, please go ahead, hit that subscribe button, ring the bell so you get notified when I upload. And if you want to know when I upload streams, well, get notified when I upload all the videos, get notified when I go live. Just stay in tune for what's happening on the channel at all times. But if you want to be in tune with everything else I do in the sports media world and get notified when streams are going live a heck of a lot earlier than YouTube sending you a notification, then go down below, follow me on social media, Twitter, Instagram, wherever else you like to peruse through the social media. So this is going to be a flawless national championship game. But before, again, we talk about that, we have to talk about Dante Moore. Thank you all for your support. Scotty, I will address this right now. Tampering is a word that gets thrown out there all the time. And I've mentioned this on stream already before. Scotty, I'm not a big fan of the word. And it's not because it's a negative word. Everyone knows it's a negative word, but everybody tampers. Okay. You tamper, we tamper, everybody tampers. I mean, everyone from Alabama and Clemson to, Ohio State and Washington and Baylor and BYU and probably to a lesser extent the G5s, but they probably do it within their own little circles there. Everybody tampers, everybody, and in this day and age of college football, you're never going to prove what is and what's not. That's really what I got to say about it. That's been my viewpoint for quite some time now. And Scotty, do appreciate your support as always, my man. We will dive on in here. Let's talk about Dante Moore, who decided to come back to school today. Oh boy. Okay. Sorry, all my graphics got funky. All right. So Oregon quarterback Dante Moore went on SportsCenter today being Wednesday, as I'm sitting here talking to all of you fine people on live stream. Whether you're watching it live, whether you're watching back on the video, Dante Moore is going to be coming back to Oregon. He is going to forego the NFL draft and return for another year of eligibility. And things get a lot more interesting this time because no longer is he the presumptive starting quarterback. Okay, I lied. He's going to be the presumptive starting quarterback, but no longer is he the guy that is going to win that job easily. I think that was the thing coming into Oregon this year. You knew who your starting quarterback was going to be in Dante Moore, but now the former UCLA Bruin is going to have some competition in that room in Dylan Raiola. Let's table that discussion and let's talk about Dante Moore and why he said he made this decision. So quite simply what it boiled down to around, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the lovely program that is Sports Center this afternoon, he came on and was going to announce his decision live for the world to see, right? And again, he's decided to come back to school. Well, why did he do that? Why is he foregoing the NFL draft and all this guaranteed money and being a top 5 draft pick and getting a starting quarterback job in likely New York? Who knows? Maybe Las Vegas took him with the number 1 overall pick, even though it looked like a long shot. Still a possibility, right? Why did he forego the NFL draft? I'll tell you why, at least according to him and his words. He said, in a nutshell, I'm obviously paraphrasing here, that he wants to be ready for every opportunity that he takes and that comes his way. And so to some of you, that may signal the fact that, he's not ready for the NFL, according to him. That very well may be so. Maybe he thinks that. Maybe he's been told that, which I kind of highly doubt either of those things. I think one definitely can be more true than the other, but he wants to win. And I think while that was not clearly evident in the Sports Center segment, he wants to win and not happy with the way this season ended. I think not happy with his play at times. And I think knows his best football is still ahead of him. So coming back to Oregon is going to be a massive get for Dan Lanning, for the fans in Eugene. And like I just talked about there, man, I mean, they got the right head coach for the job. And now another year more experienced in Dante Moore off the teachings of Dylan Gabriel in 24-25. He's going to end up being that guy most likely yet again this year. Now, again, it's not going to come with competition because Dylan Raiola is in that room too. Yet to see if he's still going to transfer or not. It, for the moment, sounds like Dylan Raiola is going to be a guy that sticks around. And ironically enough, if he stays, is going to get on the Dante Moore path because, as I just said, Dante Moore sat behind Dylan Gabriel, and now Dylan Raiola looks like he's going to sit behind Dante Moore. A lot of D-named quarterbacks. Dylan, Dante, and then, well, Dylan again, just spelled differently. This is a great move. I not only think for him, but I also absolutely think for this program. If they want to erase that 0 in the national championship conversation, and if any team wants to do that or just wants to add another trophy to their collection, it helps to have an experienced starting quarterback. And, well, Dante Moore is going to be that. But what I think gets looked past a little bit, maybe by some, not by all, Dante Moore is only 20 years old. Now, he's going to end up being 21 throughout the majority of next season, I do believe. But this guy's only 20 years old. He's still, again, got a lot of football ahead of him. And I still think his best football has yet to be put on the gridiron. So I think coming back here is the right decision. College is where you go to get developed, learn everything you can, either to prepare yourself in life if you don't go on to play pro football, or like Dante Moore will inevitably do, go on to play pro football. Now, the counter argument. Why should he have chosen the NFL draft? Well, the reason that he should have chosen the NFL draft, to some, I'm not making this argument. However, some are. And some do every single time a situation like this comes up. They say, why would you throw away guaranteed money and a guaranteed starting job in the NFL? What are you doing? Well, there are a couple reasons for why they do that. One, they want to go win a national championship in college. I mean, yeah, Emeka Egbuka easily could have gone to the draft for Ohio State last year. What'd he do? He came back and they won a national championship. Same with a lot of guys on that Buckeye team last year. You can point to Michigan in 23. They rounded the troops back up and went and won a national title with all these returning pieces. Dante Moore around him is going to have a lot of returning pieces. And now when you bring him back into the conversation, Oregon, not that they weren't going to do this already, but they now easily are going to sit still towards the top of the table to compete for a national championship. And it helps a lot more because Dante Moore is going to be a year experienced and he's going to be a year better. when you look at his stat line from last season and what Dante Moore was able to do, I mean, threw for over 3,500 yards. This includes the college football playoff. 72% completion percentage is phenomenal. 30 touchdowns to 10 picks. You clean up those interceptions, which he did a lot better with those than what happened at UCLA in his freshman year of ball. He did a whole lot better this season. I think you saw some really nice flashes of what the best version of Dante Moore looks like. I think we can see that over a consistent season now. But let's go back to Dylan Raiola for the last time here, because he's not the story here. Dante Moore is. It's obviously a story, because if Dylan Raiola sticks around, you're going to have one of the best 1-2 quarterback systems in the country, period. End of story, and it very well might be the best. Dylan Raiola's got some things that he needs to work on, though, right? Getting the ball out of the hand quicker, not sitting so long inside the pocket, making some better reads at times. And look, I'm not saying Dante Moore is a perfect quarterback, but he's obviously still got room to grow. But putting him back in this room makes Oregon a better football team next year. And it's, again, no slight to Dylan Raiola. He was a former 5-star. He's a really good quarterback and has the potential to be a really good quarterback, especially now that he's going to sit behind the teachings of Dante Moore, again, if he sticks around. But this gives Oregon just an absolutely phenomenal weapon and a phenomenal quarterback overall. Now, again, the other part of the argument is, well, he's throwing away a guaranteed starting job in the NFL. Do some guys want a guaranteed starting job? Clearly, Dante Moore, to me, made a very mature decision. And maybe that decision, to some, jokingly enough, was to not play for the New York Jets. To a lot of guys, it doesn't matter. You can go to the Jets, the Browns, the Raiders, or the Chiefs, or the Patriots, or any team that's got Super Bowl hopes, right? Everybody wants to win a Super Bowl, but to some guys, they've made it. They're in the NFL. They don't care where they go. And I sense from Dante Moore that he's ready to come back and win a championship for this team and win a championship for this city. I think this is a fantastic move for him. I think it is an exceptional move for Dan Lanning to be able to get this guy back. I absolutely love this for Oregon. I love it for Dante Moore, and I can't wait to see how this thing plays out in 2026-27 because this kid, Dante Moore, has got a bright future ahead of him. And barring any injuries, because you can never predict those, Dante Moore is still going to end up being a day one selection in next year's NFL draft, along with the likelihood of Arch Manning and Julian Sayin if they both happen to commit themselves to being put through the NFL draft process and don't decide about that and don't decide to return to college like Dante Moore just did. Hey, blooper reel that will end up making the video. So, I mean, stellar, stunning, great job, a mature decision from a really, really bright young man that's got a bright future ahead of him. Dante Moore is coming back to Oregon and sets up Oregon for all the better next year. Questions, comments, concerns about Dante Moore? Probably doesn't want to be in an organization like the Jets. I mean, look, I know the jokes are going to get thrown out there about it's the Jets, or if it was Cleveland, it's the Browns, or, you know, I don't see anybody making the Fernando Mendoza to Las Vegas. And if it's out there, I just simply haven't seen it. Now, the Jets are a lot different than Las Vegas in terms of how the team has done ever since the Mark Sanchez butt fumble. However, this is a kid that I think is making the best decision for himself. He's still going to get some good money playing for Oregon. He's going to get a lot of money as the starting quarterback for Oregon, by the way. And he's, you know, I believe recognizes that he does not have 100% of his game unlocked yet. I think that there are still some pieces with Dante Moore that can be unlocked and that can be unleashed. And I think that's why it's a good decision for him to come back and play for the Ducks next year. He would get beat up at the Jets or any teams around the Jets draft pick. Again, you're in the NFL. You're an NFL quarterback. To me, wouldn't matter where I went to go play ball. I'm living out my dream. I know to some people it does, and that's why no trade clauses exist. That's why no trade clauses exist, because people are happy where they are. But you guys know what I'm trying to say. I won't be traded to these certain teams, so on and so forth. But I mean, look, man, if Trae Young can request a trade to the Washington Wizards, then Dante Moore can go be the starting quarterback with the New York Jets. That's all I'm saying. So does Miami contact Dylan Raiola now? Yeah. So the interesting thing about Dylan is, and this will be something that gets talked about once we go through transfers, especially if he ends up staying at Oregon, but the kid played at 4 different high schools and transferred out of Nebraska after 2 years. So this is going to be his 6th different school playing football for in his high school and collegiate career. And if he decides to transfer away from Oregon, he's just going to pull what Minchie did from Notre Dame, coincidentally enough, with Nebraska, and then went to Kentucky after, just rethinking what's going on. So I still really like the move from Oregon, but again, my 2 cents on the matter. So thank you all so much, by the way, for tuning into the stream. 45 minutes down, and now we are to the main event. Okay, that's what everybody's here for. We're going to be talking about, we're going to be previewing the national championship game. Right after I tell you, hey, look, if for some reason you're tuned into the stream and that subscribe button still is not clicked, it's showing you still haven't subscribed, just go ahead and do it, man. Hit that button. Go ahead, ring the bell so you know when live streams, go live, and you know when the clips get posted onto the channel there as well. And if you want to know earlier when live streams are going to go on that day or later on in the week, follow me on social media at Tailgate829, Twitter, Instagram, wherever else you like to peruse the social medias. And you can take a look at everything else I do in the social media realm. Once again, as always, thank you all so much for all of your support. And now we get you to the main event of the stream, because there's just one more college football game left this season. It's Miami. It's Indiana on Monday. Here we go. We're going to make sure that all the things work. Okay, cool. Give me 1 second, y'all. Sorry about this. Okay, cool. I wanted to make sure I had my odds correct and updated, because these graphics were made yesterday. I couldn't remember if I updated the line. But I did. So here we go. And then there were 2. Miami versus Indiana for the national championship game in Hard Rock Stadium in Miami, Florida. Both of these teams are trying to do something that has never happened in the history of college football. Miami is trying to bring home a national title on home turf. No college football team has ever won a national title in their own building. And for the Indiana Hoosiers, well, it's going to be a ton of firsts for them. They're trying to win the program's first national championship. They're trying to become the first ever 16-0 team in college football history. And they're trying to cap off just an incredible run, not only throughout this postseason, but through the past 2 years, really, under Curt Cignetti. A first-round exit last season. They've ramped it up, and now they are playing for a national championship. This is going to be a fantastic game. I think it's going to be a fantastic game. And we're here to tell you how both of these teams get this thing done. And I'll even give you my prediction for who I think wins the national championship game. So let's just take a look here, folks, at everything that these two teams have done to be able to get here. For Miami, you beat Texas A&M. You beat Ohio State, the defending national champs, and then you defeat Ole Miss in thrilling fashion in the Fiesta Bowl. You move on here to the national championship game, and for Miami, this has been a really interesting season. They were the last team into the college football playoff field because in a vacuum, well, they had the head-to-head over Notre Dame. Don't tell me the regular season doesn't matter because that game helped Miami get into the playoff and they stand just 4 quarters away from a national championship. Miami has been through its share of lows this season, losing to Louisville, then losing to SMU, everybody thinking their season is over. They don't even make the ACC championship game, and they win a grinded out battle against A&M. They're able to outmuscle the defending national champs. They go wire to wire with Ole Miss, and Carson Beck runs it into the end zone. You see the shot right here, actually. To be able to win that game, man, just flawless stuff from Miami. But Indiana, I used this word earlier in the stream, other videos from the stream, if you go back and watch it after it's live, Indiana's just been surgical this season. And every single time that I've previewed an Indiana game this postseason, I have basically said the same things. Do what you do, because there is just nothing that Indiana has to do differently to help them win this football game. 1 second here, folks. We're going to do one of those. All righty. And what that has been for the Indiana program is pass rushing the quarterback, just generating that pressure, stopping the run, and letting the Heisman Trophy winner do his thing. Also be surgical on third down, grab every piece of momentum that is available, and don't give any of it back ever. Indiana has been a wagon this season. Wagon. And look, they have faced moments of adversity this season. They faced a moment of adversity against Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game. They faced a moment of adversity against Penn State where Omar Cooper had to make what I think is catch of the year to be able to win that football game. So Indiana has gone through the trials and tribulations, and they've adjusted and they've figured things out. But this is an Indiana team that just quite simply looks like they're built for this and acts like they're built for this too. They are ready for this moment. We keep talking about how this is an Indiana team that is just continuously putting forth the best moment in Indiana football history by winning the Big Ten championship. Then it was beating Alabama in the Rose Bowl. Then it was beating Oregon to move on to the national championship. And they're 4 quarters away from doing it for the very, very first time. Again, Indiana has never won a national championship. They'll be looking to do it for the first time in program history. Miami's looking to do it for the first time in a quarter of a century. The second time this century, actually, since 2001. Obviously lost the 2002 national championship game to the Buckeyes, and they have never been back since. In fact, it's been really tough for them to get back since. This is the first time that Miami has made the college football playoff in either the 4 or 12 team era, and now they're going to a national championship. It just speaks to the way that Mario Cristobal has built this team, has built this program. It has been truly fantastic. So what are some of the keys that are going to play into this factor? Well, again, if you are Indiana, what did I just say, right? You don't have to do anything different. If you are the Indiana Hoosiers, it's control the line of scrimmage. It's be able to let Fernando Mendoza do his thing, find Elijah Surratt, Omar Cooper, Charlie Becker, all these great targets that Mendoza has got to play with, and then just let your defense be your defense, man. The secondary starting to force more turnovers. D'Angelo Pons especially has been a beast. Second time this stream, I'll say, and first time this video, he's now got a pond named after him in Indiana. So good to you, D'Angelo Pons. And just play physical football, be surgical on third downs. Indiana does not have a weakness that you can attack. They just don't have that one weak point that's going to make you say, but if you exploit this, it's the Achilles heel. Let's get something straight, though. Miami can win this football game. And let's talk about first how they're going to win it, because a lot of teams this year, when they've run into Indiana, have said, oh boy, you've got to try to handle that pressure. You've got to try to handle that defense. You've got to try to handle their physicality. Miami can do that. And pin that thought. We'll talk more about it later. But the biggest thing for Miami, among many, many other keys, get Carson Beck going. Let Mark Fletcher run it on the ground. Let your defensive front generate that pressure. Again, put a pin in it. They cannot let Indiana settle into this game. I think it is definitely in Miami's favor if this game is messy and the teams are turning the football over. I know it still doesn't bode well for Miami because Carson Beck, for the most part, sees one interception turn into 2, 3, and that's going to play into Miami's downfall. Miami has got to force Indiana to make some mistakes because, quite simply, Indiana's not going to make them themselves. You've got to throw some different looks at Fernando Mendoza defensively. You've got to be able to let that pressure wreak havoc on this Indiana offensive line that's been beast mode all season long. You've got to be able to let Carson Beck sling the rock downfield, find CJ Daniels, find Malachi Toney, find some of these other guys on the edge, and Mark Fletcher has to continue to get his. Defensively, again, you need guys on the defensive front to step up. Your linebackers need to tackle in space. Keontae Scott has got to continue to be a massive threat in that secondary for this team, not only just from defending passes, but also from being able to jump the line of scrimmage and get home to the quarterback. Keontae Scott, they've loved to bring him on some of these design blitzes this year. Look, all of that sounds like a lot for Miami to be able to do, and it sounds like they have to do all of that to win the football game. I don't think they have to do all of it, but it simply wouldn't hurt. And when you play a team like Indiana, who is methodical and is just not going to beat themselves, it forces you to play near perfect, if not at perfect. But this not letting IU settle in here is the biggest key. You have to continue to throw things at them. You have to try to make this thing messy, because as soon as you don't, and Indiana settles into this game, let's say in Miami comes out guns a-blazing, and maybe they're up 7-3. That's still Indiana weathering the storm. Maybe they're up 14-10, even 14-6. Indiana has weathered that storm. Indiana's had moments this year where they've had to weather that storm. But as soon as this Hoosier team grabs every ounce of momentum, Miami is not getting it back. The only time that I think you couldn't say that about an Indiana team is the Big Ten championship game where Ohio State stole some late, and it just happened that Jaden Fielding missed that field goal. Who knows what would have happened if that game went into overtime. But Indiana, as soon as they settle in and as soon as they find their rhythm, nobody is beating them. Nobody. I'll just tell you flat out right now, if Indiana weathers the storm, and even if they're down by 4 to 7 points and they settle in, things going to get really, really, really interesting. But for Indiana, and one of the biggest keys for them is they also have to be able to handle the pressure, and they have to handle it in a couple different ways. First off, they have to handle it from a national championship standpoint. I know Kurt Cignetti has just helped this team absolutely blitz through the college football playoff, right? Indiana has still got to weather that storm and weather that pressure. Because Miami is going to put it on from a team perspective first. Miami is a good football team. Everybody forgets that they were up there with Ohio State competing for the number one spot in the country. In fact, a lot of people had Miami ranked number one until they lost to Louisville. And then they lost to SMU. And that's when everybody crumpled up the proverbial piece of paper and tossed it over their shoulder. Miami is deserving to be here, not only for the way that they've played this postseason run, but for the way that they have looked most of this season, and especially speaks to the job that Mario Cristobal has done. But Indiana has been the better football team this year. They've got to be able to handle this pressure from playing in the biggest game of their lives type pressure, which, I mean, they've done over the past several weeks in the college football playoff, and even going back over a month now to the Big Ten championship game. They felt that moment time and time again. There's just something different when a trophy is on the line to the magnitude of a national championship. A lot of people have said, man, how are you going to handle Indiana? Well, I think Indiana has to ask the question, how are we going to handle Miami? Because this is a Miami team that's really physical up front. They have provided a ton of issues for most of their opponents this year on the defensive front and being able to create pressure and get the quarterback out of rhythm and out of system. That's exactly what's got to happen to Fernando Mendoza here. Mendoza's got a lot of great wide receivers, and he can extend plays. Miami just saw a quarterback like that in Trinidad Chambliss, and they did not let him be active with his legs. Indiana does things a whole lot differently than what Ole Miss does, but Miami's just got to be able to find a way to contain Fernando Mendoza, and they've got to get home. They've got to get him on the ground and force Indiana into these 3rd and longs. Why? Because Indiana's been surgical on 3rd down. They were 11 of 14 in the game against Oregon, back against Alabama. I think they were still pretty good there on 3rd down. They were excellent on 3rd down to the Big Ten championship. In fact, they're the best 3rd down team in the entire country. And, second place, which I believe is Ohio State, is looking well up at the Hoosiers, thinking, oh, that's a pretty good 3rd down percentage. And the Buckeyes are the 2nd best team in the country at it, or whoever happens to be 2nd. So this Indiana team, I mean, again, it's just been incredible. You've got to handle this pressure, though. Miami's going to find ways to make this thing messy. And much like Indiana has done throughout some of this season, then it is lost my train of thought there. We'll get it back. No worries. Much of the way that Indiana has wanted to, here we go. Much like the way that Indiana has wanted to, play tempo and control things and slow things down and take their shots when necessary. That's exactly Miami's game too, man. They're going to want to, help control the pace of this game from their own right and their own perspective. And it's just going to lead to good things for this program. It absolutely is. And for this team, who again is trying to win their first national championship for the first time in a quarter century. So you can't let Indiana settle in, but Indiana also, I think, is looking at a team on the opposing sideline for on a very rare occasion. I think they did it with Penn State. I think they did it with Ohio State, maybe one or two others, where they said that team can match up with us physically, and it could lead to a problem if we're not careful. Let's take a look at what the sportsbook says on who's going to be favored to win this game. And look, let me just tell you, the lines on this thing, I think, are a lot bigger than they should be, but it reflects the way that both of these teams have played throughout the season. Indiana is the 8.5-point favorite in this national championship game, and the over-under is 47.5. Indiana is more than a touchdown favorite over Miami, who's going to be playing on their home football field. But let's make no mistake, Indiana fans have traveled this year. They have, full-on bulldozed stadiums with their crimson color. I think they're going to do it again here at Hard Rock Stadium. I think this crowd, look, Miami fans are going to show up. It's right in their backyard. And I know that, Miami has the reputation for not having the best home environment. Yeah. I don't think this is going to be a pseudo home environment, but there's going to be a lot of green and orange here. You can believe that, on top of all the crimson that's going to be seen in this stadium. Miami playing in Hard Rock again. Both these teams trying to do something that they have never done in the history, that nobody has ever done in the history of college football, and both trying to get some program first as well. Before I give you my prediction, I will say this. I think the spread is going to be a whole lot closer than 8.5. So no matter who I predict in a second to win this game, I do think that Miami is going to cover that 8.5. Now, I made this mistake against Oregon. First of all, I did pick Oregon to win the game, but if Miami is going to make their own self-inflicted mistakes, and Carson Beck has one of his games where he throws some picks again, and those mistakes just keep mounting. And one thing that I think is really going to play into Miami's factor, you can't have 10 penalties for 74 yards and win this football game. They could against Ole Miss because they had the ball for 41 minutes. They're not going to in this game. That's what they had against the Rebels. You can't do it here. Cannot. Miami was pretty good on third down against Ole Miss. I don't think you have to match what Indiana does, because if Indiana goes 11 of 14 again, even something smaller, even if they go 8 for 13, you're still going to have to try to do your best to get as close to that number as possible. And, whenever you stop this Indiana team on third down and you keep points off the board, you've got to capitalize. You just have to. It's that factor of not letting IU settle into this game. Keep them on their heels. Keep them hungry. Keep them wanting it, right? Which could play into your disadvantage, because Sig is a menace and is not going to let up even if Indiana's up 30 at halftime, which, again, I just don't see happening. Indiana has been a wagon this season. And look, there have been a lot of times this season where I have been foolish to pick against the Hoosiers. I picked them to beat Alabama. I definitely did. But I did pick Ohio State to beat Indiana. Way back in the beginning of the regular season, I picked Illinois to beat them. I picked Oregon to upset Indiana. So you would think that I would not make that mistake again. I've had this hunch. And sometimes what my mama has always taught me, trust your instincts. Now, oftentimes in the college football prediction scheme, they have let me down. They have. But I'm going to trust them here. My instincts tell me that Miami is ready to play this game. And my instincts tell me that Miami is going to play their best game. I think we see a near surgical Carson Beck. I think Mark Fletcher continues to do his thing. And I think this Miami defense comes up with a couple of big stops. I think Miami wins the national championship. It's, again, in asterisks and italices, because obviously it hasn't happened yet. But if they do it, again, as I've said, they'd be the first team to win in their home venue. But I think Miami is going to win this game. I think Indiana is a wagon, and they're a really, really good football team. And man, they are tough to beat, but they're not impossible to beat. What I will say about this game, though, and everything I've said has rung true, if Indiana steals the momentum at any point here and they put themselves up by double digits, thing might be done. I just don't know that Miami is going to steal back that momentum against an Indiana team that has been so good. This offensive line for Indiana is their biggest key. If they can handle the pressure from Miami, you take away what I think is the biggest advantage that Miami has out of this game. But I think Miami is going to be ready for it. I think this defensive front is going to be ready. I think Keontae Scott in the secondary is going to make some plays. And I think Carson Beck is ready for the biggest game of his life. And my hunch tells me that not only does Miami cover, they win this thing outright. And I think they become the first team to win at home, a home game for a national title. I think they win their first title in a quarter century. And it's going to leave some Indiana fans disappointed. They had a heck of a season. And in fact, y'all, it's not going to surprise me at all if Indiana wins this game. In fact, common knowledge would tell you Indiana probably is going to win this game. But sometimes your instincts are worth trusting. That's the lesson here, and it will be the lesson, especially if Miami wins this game. I am going to pick the Hurricanes to beat the Hoosiers in the national championship, and they get it done. Mario Cristobal brings home the hardware to 20 minutes down the road once this game is all said and done. I expect it to be a fantastic game. But I just think that you got this team over here that's feeling it. And I think they're going to show that to you on Monday night. Wow. Oh, boy. That's on record now, so there's no change in that. Again, couldn't tell you guys how much I've gone back and forth and back and forth. I just have this hunch, yeah, but Indiana's been the better team. But I really think Indiana's been... I landed here because I think while Sig has the killer instinct that you love out of a head coach in college football, my hunch is telling me that Miami is going to get this thing done. Sometimes you don't need any better reason to that. And I know it's failed me before. And I know what the Hoosier fans will say. And that's okay. I've taken worse heat in the past. So leave the conversation at that unless anybody has any questions. Scotty, you can't pick against Sig. And I don't blame you, man. I mean, look, they steal the momentum. They get this thing up 10, 14, God forbid, 20 points, which I just don't see. I don't think Indiana's going to blow them out. I consider this thing done. Really consider it done. By the way, as of 20 minutes ago, the starting kicker for Baylor is committed to Ohio State. Hey, good pickup for the Buckeyes there. Good pickup for the Buckeyes. Apologies to your Baylor Bears there, Scotty. I know that's going to end up being a big loss. Scotty, I was looking at this earlier today, actually. Do you want to remind me the name of the kicker? I don't know why it is escaping my head, Scotty. If you're still in the stream, I would really appreciate it. USC tried to do that against Texas. Home state was a miracle win for Texas. Yeah, again, USC had their shot to do it. Scotty, what is the name of the Baylor kicker? I don't know why I am blanking, and we'll see if I can find it. Connor Hawkins. Thank you. Thank you. Because as soon as I saw that, that name is familiar. Let's look. Little extended conversation here. Sorry, everybody. I'm looking up something. Big get for the Buckeyes because of, well, obviously the narrative around Ohio State in that, look, speaking from a Buckeye perspective, I don't think they've had a reliable kicker since Mike Nugent. He is now retired from the NFL. I think it's been that long. Connor Hawkins this year, for some of you Buckeye fans that may be watching, Connor Hawkins last season, where'd you go? I just had it. Here we go. 18 of 22 on field goals. He was 5 of 8 from 40 and 3 of 4 from 50. So in total, that is 8 of 12. And that's where his 4 misses came from. 18 of 22 was perfect on extra points, as should be the standard in big-time college football. Did that only as a freshman. So a redshirt freshman, I do believe, will be a redshirt sophomore with the Buckeyes next year, in which he was come in 2024, kicked 150-plus yarder, missed it as a young kicker, and then went on. Ooh, nobody clipped my hair. That was bad. That was bad. Hey, we'll stay live for a little bit if anybody has got any questions. If not, feel free to go back and watch this stream. And tomorrow, we'll be uploading both reactions. We'll be uploading Dante Moore and some of the other videos that I have not uploaded yet, such as is the first round to blame in the college football playoff. And yeah, so any questions from the crowd about preferably the national championship game, but I'll answer anything you got. We got quite a bit of people in here, at least compared to usual. Thank you, all of you, by the way. for watching this stream, for watching these videos that do come out. Make sure after this thing is done, hit the subscribe button, ring the bell. Follow me on social media, Tailgate829, Twitter, Instagram, anywhere else you want to peruse through the social medias. I am there, and I'm updating all of you on what's going on here on YouTube and elsewhere in my life as I'm trying to reach as high as I can in the professional world of sports media. And all of you help out with that. So, hey, thank you so much for sticking with me here on the stream. He did hit game-winning field goal against SMU. Okay, that should make Buckeye fans excited because, well, going back to Noah Ruggles on New Year's Eve, Jaden Fielding, multiple times throughout his career, has not come through in the clutch. Reliable kicker otherwise, but just hasn't come through in the clutch, and that is what the Buckeyes have been missing. Absolutely. Again, I ask any questions from the people in the comment section. Otherwise, we'll close this thing out. So we'll chill for a little bit as per usual. Baylor's a good backup in Rhett Armstrong. Yeah, Scotty, I wouldn't be too concerned about Baylor. I think Baylor's got some other things to try to figure out besides kicker. And that starts with developing DJ Lagway if he does stay committed, which sounds like it's going to be the case. But they got to, figure out things with DJ Lagway, so on and so forth. So, hey, thank you also. Oh, I forgot to announce one thing during that segment. I'll put it out on all my social medias. Would it be a good idea to put things in the community tab here on YouTube? Haven't thought about that up until now. I think I'm going to start to do that as well. So you'll see things on the community tab on YouTube. If you go to your subscription feed, you'll see it pop up on there as well. So I'll start letting all you fine people know when the streams are going to be here on YouTube as well. That's probably going to help a fair bit of you, I would imagine. My plan is to do one more live stream talking about some final thoughts for the national championship and just covering some of the other stuff that's happened around college football. Maybe we look at some of the bigger transfers. Who knows? I actually do have to double check. Anybody know off rip when the transfer portal is closed? Never mind. I just got it. Ooh, the 16th. Okay, yeah. I think we're going to come back and we are going to talk about some of the biggest transfer additions that have happened. So that's what this weekend stream will be. We'll be talking about, transfer additions. I'll look at some of the biggest throughout the standpoints. And then Monday, we are going to be talking and reacting live to what happens during the national championship game. Yeah, I know. Reacting live. I know. But I mean, man, now that I've set these live streams up, I want to do them justice. And I think a fantastic way to do that is to, broadcast the national championship live. That is my plan currently. There is nothing that is currently on my schedule that is preventing me from putting on such an event. And I would love to watch the national championship with all of you. So, hey, we've got nothing rolling through. So I'll say my goodbyes and thank you all so much for supporting me, supporting the channel. Again, remember to subscribe, ring the bell, follow me on all social medias. All clips and everything that I talked about here in this live stream will be available on YouTube starting tomorrow. So until then, remember to play hard, but tailgate harder. I'll see you next week. Actually, that's a lie. I'll see you this weekend, and then I'll see you Monday for the national championship game. Have a great evening, everybody. Goodbye.